You're listening to the Ballet Piano Podcast, lifting the lid on dance accompaniment.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Ballet Piano Podcast season for 2024. Around the coffee table with me, Chris Hobson, is my beautiful wife and much better pianist, Akiko Hobson.
Konnichiwa.
My favourite friend, Matthew Gregory.
Hello there, listeners.
And my other favourite friend and teacher, David Yo.
Hi, everybody.
How is everybody?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
It feels like only moments since we recorded the last episode. Definitely not batch recording a season, are we, to try and fit it in. But we're all good. We're all here. And we are ready this episode to talk about how a new teacher can work with a pianist for the first time. Because I imagine, I know we're going to get onto in the next episode, being a newbie pianist going into a ballet class. But as a newbie teacher, David, when you've had this amazing career on the stage, to then become a teacher and know you've got to pass on your knowledge, and also to have to instruct possibly a pianist who's got decades of experience, it can seem really daunting, can it?
Totally. Yeah, you just feel overwhelmed and out of your depth.
How did you find it the first time when you started working with a musician?
It felt very false, and I was trying very hard to do the right thing.
Right.
Do you feel nervous?
Yes, hugely nervous. Even now, there are days when I'm like, oh, if I don't have a Tondu exercise, that's it. I'm all over the place. But if I do come in and now with more experience, you just know the first thing you have to do is make eye contact. You have to you build that rapport straight away with your pianist.
Yeah.
Because without your pianist, you're nothing.
Yes.
Can we get that on a t-shirt, please?
That's a t-shirt. That's branded merch, that, isn't it? But actually, you were very good at that. When we used to work together in the Western Hemisphere for years, and also in the mid-hemisphere in Birmingham, when we worked there together, you always had eye contact from start to finish. Like whether it was just as a friendship or to say the exercise is finishing, the eye contact, I think with you is always key. And I know we've had other colleagues who will say the same thing about you. You're one of the most communicative teachers that I've ever worked with, I think.
Yeah. But as I said, I wasn't always like that. I had to learn, just like everybody else, the hard way.
Can I ask you about when you were training on the teacher's course, about the emphasis on communicating with pianists, if you can remember? Did they teach you what the sort of things that you should say or that you might say?
Yes, in our course they did. Yeah. It was the old course. It wasn't the course that's run today.
Yeah.
But we had whole voice lessons and things, and they did. It was almost like a script, first of all, because, of course, when you're learning your craft, you have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
So if you have a script to learn, then, okay, it gets repetitive, but you get used to it, you get more familiar, and then you start, you
can go off it a bit.
You can improv around it a little bit.
Yeah.
Something that you didn't learn from this teacher's course, and then you had the experience when you actually started to teach in terms of communicating with musicians?
When you're in every single day, in a ballet course, you're only learning for that one class per day. But when you're in a school and you're working, you have to think, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're all going to be different days and they all feel different. And perhaps you don't have the same pianist every day.
Yeah.
So you have to keep making that effort.
Which in some ways, I suppose, can be an absolute pain in the derriere when you don't have the same pianist every day. But then in another way, it can keep the inspiration coming because you have to give the same information out. But as long as if you've got an experienced pianist, you can sort of go and a one, and that's all they need to play that Tondu exercise.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a different musical choice to what you got yesterday and what you're going to get tomorrow. So I suppose everything's got its bonuses and its
it is absolutely
pros
that's what
and cons,
I like.
hasn't it?
Absolutely. But you're right. I mean, you have to keep it fresh, and there are many different ways to do that. But clearly, communication is one of those.
Yeah.
Does your sort of demeanour change when you, let's say you have somebody who's really experienced and, you can sort of, okay, relax.
Yes.
And then if you've got somebody that not necessarily you're coaching through the class, but who is newer and you think, okay, I'm not quite sure what they might give me.
Yes. I mean, I try and think if I was in that position, how would it feel?
Yeah.
And patience isn't something that came to me easily as a person. I've had to learn that over the years, and I've made lots of mistakes, huge mistakes. But over the time, you get to understand, if I was in that position and I was like really, really nervous about it, how would I want to be asked to do this?
I think with some teachers, maybe they haven't thought about that as well. But ultimately, I mean, a teacher has a job to do. And as much as teachers want to train and help to train the next generation of pianists and will do as much as they can, that's not your main priority. Your main priority is to be training the students as a teacher, isn't it? In vocational training. So you've got to keep up with that.
It's like conducting, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got to
conducting the room,
fit it all in.
So you have like a time constraint.
Coach that person,
exactly.
Annoyingly,
yeah.
I mean, I suppose that's the thing. And this is possibly this is a separate episode, but you can't. There's no sort of shortcut to experience, and it's the same with teaching. We can get onto that in that.
Yes.
There is no shortcut to experience.
Yes.
I've got a little bit of advice for brand new teachers. Learn the pianist's name. And, we laugh at that and it sounds obvious, but some ballet teachers will just walk in and call you maestro for an hour and a half. And that just puts up a little bit of distance. It does for me. It doesn't really change how I play. I'll always play to the best of my ability. But if someone uses my name, or like what you do, David, you give a big smile at the start of the exercise. And when the last sort of 4 to 6 counts are coming up, you give another big smile. And that says, okay, you don't want any more music. It's naturally coming to an end. I'll round off here. It's that, isn't it?
And also, it's a communication that you can actually do in the beginning of the class, before the class, to know each other. Like, what's your name?
Yeah.
How can I call you? And it's just, you get a bit close to each other.
I think,
and it's like you're entering into a little sort of team for the next hour and a half.
It is, absolutely.
You have to be a team. I mean, like the best teacher pianist combination classes that I've ever had over the last 20 plus years, they've been where I felt like I was as one with the teacher and we were a complete team and we were going for it together. We had the same sort of outcome in mind.
Did you play for Kate Lyons a couple of weeks ago at those City Ballet things?
Yes, I did.
She uses the pianist's name after every exercise.
Really?
Yeah.
She says, thanks very much, Matt. Every exercise. Thanks, Matt.
I thought that was because, like me, she struggled to remember people's names. She says it more. She keeps saying it. Maybe not. Maybe
but she kept thanking you with your name, didn't she?
Yeah, she was very good.
That's true, because the other day I was playing for Brian Maloney for a class, and then it just in between the exercise, he said my exercise, and I played something I can't remember, and he literally just said to the panels and everybody, tune from Akiko, instead of maestro or anything like this, and it just makes me feel a bit personal and it felt very good.
Do you know, I think my biggest tip, and this is based on something that happened before Christmas, and it wasn't an issue, it was just a miscounting thing, is use counts, not bars, for a new teacher. Because the teacher said to me, we'll have 16, I can't have said 16 bars balance or 8 bars balance, and they weren't talking about bars, they were talking about counts. But they also didn't know if it was a 2/4 or a 4/4. So I was working in the musical sense of 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2, and the teacher going 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. So I was miles off. I was like, but he'd worked in counts, or they had worked in counts for absolutely everything else. And then the bars thing threw me. So then it's I stopped, and it's like, no, maestro, we need more. We need more for this.
But in 2/4 terms, a quick 8 or a slow 8. Especially if it's a quick 2/4. You can have quick 8s and slow 8s, and it's however they're counting it. So as long as the teacher and the dancers are clear in their counts.
I mean, that's for a newbie teacher. Sorry to interrupt you. You'll get it out eventually. But
it's like their marriage.
But to be consistent with your counts, if you're going to go and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a 7 and an 8, and then repeat that all the way through your exercise, try and keep that through your balance. Even if that means your balance goes to 32 or whatever it goes to, don't suddenly start changing your counts. Go and a 1, 2, and a 3 and a 4, because that's confusing.
More experienced teachers can count you into a second side. If you're vamping your balance, it doesn't matter how long it is, 8 or 16 counts. Experienced teachers can count you into the next side because they can feel it.
And that's when eye contact really helps.
I love David always the fast music that you can count either way. he always look at me and then say that, I want the 8 counting, but this, like he would count with singing. And so exactly, is it a shorter one or longer one? And it just makes feel a little bit secure at me. Yeah.
And I think that comes with, this is another one, and I don't know, David, you might be able to elaborate on this point. Trust your pianist, because if you're going in there as a newbie teacher and you've got a pianist who's possibly 3 years experience or 30 years experience, everybody wants to go into a ballet class, teachers and pianists, and we want to have a good time. We don't do this job because we hate it. If we wanted to do a job that we hated, we'd work in the city and earn a lot more money, wouldn't we? We do this because we love it, and it's our passion, and it's been our upbringing for years. Yeah. So trust your pianist.
Remember that you're a team. Matt was right.
Yeah.
Remember you're a team, together, and it will work.
Did you have good pianists when you started off becoming a teacher, and that you could you learn to trust them, or how did you learn to trust your musician?
I think over time, you get used to it. But I've had, both.
Because when you started, presumably the pianists were more experienced than you.
They were.
And now you're probably more experienced than any pianist that walks in for you.
Right.
So then you're obviously now teaching
the
them.
tables have turned.
Not officially teaching them, but they're learning a lot from you.
And I continually learn all the time.
Yeah.
Even from new pianists, you can still learn. As you said, life's always a lesson.
Yeah. Every day is a school day.
Every day is a school day, isn't it? So, I think another tip, you may agree or disagree, but if you're a teacher, and especially if you're a jobbing teacher, if you've not got a full-time job and you're going to different places and you're slightly inexperienced or you're a newbie, is know the experience of your pianist. So if you set a basic warm-up exercise and it's a 3/4 and it's not what you want, you've got to possibly be able to adapt to make your ballet class work, haven't you? I think, as a teacher. So you've got to know and assess that.
And even as a newbie teacher, if your knowledge of music is very limited, don't worry. Just sing the same tune because it's the rhythm that they're after, your pianist is after, to help you. And then probably their knowledge is bigger than yours, and they'll be able to elaborate on what on what you might want.
Yeah.
But when you decide the step, like exercises, probably at home in advance, right? Do you sing the tunes to choreograph it?
Yes, I do, but I know other people don't.
Yeah, that's because I sometimes come across with the teachers that who probably thought it through as a step, but didn't really think it through as a music. And then, as a musician, we probably know better each step, how long it will take, or how many counts, or how much we have to. But somehow, a lot of, newly retired ballet dancer teacher, they know the step, but they don't actually know how much it will take to come from one step to the other. And then if you don't think through whatever the tune that you have in mind, it's very difficult for us to adjust for them, because one takes, this much, and then the other one is longer, and then it has to come together in the same beat. And it's very difficult to find the tune for them.
So does that go in with a little bit with don't over choreograph your exercises as a newbie teacher? You don't have to put every single step into every single exercise.
Simple is best.
I mean, I don't know. I remember doing that as a newbie pianist, which we'll get onto in the next episode. But trying to play all the notes, I am going to be the best ballet pianist, and I will show you from my warm up through to my coda at the end. I am the best, and it was completely the wrong method to take.
Having a tune in your head helps you to phrase.
Yeah,
because sometimes you can count, but you've forgotten how many 8s you've got or how many 4s. And it might be odd or even. And that's okay sometimes, but it helps your pianist to understand what you're trying to do.
I'd say don't come as a newbie teachers, don't come in with crazy high expectations. For example, if a teacher might come in and they'll sing a tune for the warm-up, but then that pianist is an improviser.
Yeah.
So they're thinking, okay, for the next hour and a half, they're going to improvise. They're not going to have tunes. It's all about rhythm and texture and colour for them as opposed to tunes. So I guess it's maybe being a bit open-minded.
You've got to be flexible.
Yes.
Flexible, yeah.
It's a collaboration. It really is.
And don't expect the world as well, because we all want to give the world, but you can't. It doesn't always work. You can't always get the world on that first meeting with a pianist, can you?
No.
Like, everybody wants it to work, but it can be like an awkward first date, which we've done in previous episodes.
Yeah.
That awkward first Tinder date or something
And
like that.
actually, with teachers that I've been working with for a long time, like on the open classes, we know each other so well that we can push each other and test each other with different rhythms and different feels and an odd 8 here or something.
Chucking in the odd syncopation
because
is like see
we
if you
know
can keep up with
each
it.
other so well,
Yeah.
like our limitations and what we can actually do, and then that's how you make a fab class.
And then when you're not the newbie anymore, when you've got some experience and you've worked with somebody for a long time, then you can start chucking in the odd curveball every now and then. Just for fun and go, let's try this, see how it works. And then again, we'll get onto it in the next episode, but as a pianist, you can sort of swing the first side of a tondu and then go for a tango, the second side, or completely change it up. I'll go to a bossa or something. But that leads me on to a memory that I have from working in the Western Hemisphere. And it's with working with Mr. David Yang. and we've covered this in previous episodes, so we don't need to talk about it again, but it was when I was planning the wedding behind the piano.
I can't believe you openly say that now.
I don't work there anymore. It's fine. I can't get sacked. I don't do it anymore. I'm a much better professional. I'm a much better freelancer now. Check the pianist is ready before you say and. Because you don't know, like we've talked about the pianist limitations possibly, but if that pianist has still got their head down, some pianists are not like us. Some pianists don't have the Rolodex of cards in their head, or they're not an improviser. Some pianists play from
sometimes
books.
they're just taking a swig of water.
Yeah.
And you're like, put the thing on the floor.
I would suggest, and it's not a dig. This is genuine. It's not a dig at anybody. I said that story.
It sounds obvious, doesn't it? It sounds patronising.
Because my head used to be constantly down for 9 months, and I know it was. And it became a game between the pair of us, and it was like, right, I can do this and look at the last minute, and you were trying to get. So it was a bit of fun, but in a general class, like just check that the pianist is ready, whether they're playing from book, whether they're playing from memory, or ready to improvise, or drinking water, because it gives you a rubbish start to the exercise, because you go into the exercise, even with all of our experience, you go into the exercise slightly flustered, don't you? You've not had that 3 seconds to focus. I think.
Yeah, it's the teacher's responsibility to conduct the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that your students, your musician, yourself, you're all going together, and so you get a better result at the end and a better feeling.
So if we're comparing it to an orchestra, the teacher is the conductor, the pianist is the concert master, and then the ballet dancers are the rest of the band.
Yes.
It's quite a nice analogy.
So we should call teachers maestro then.
Possibly. According to that, it goes back to what we said, use the name. Do you like being called maestro, Akiko?
I don't really know the definition of maestro, but am I not meant to be maestra?
Oh.
If I need to be called, I don't know.
Don't know, actually.
But now I don't know, he, she, them, then maybe maestro is maestre or something, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
No.
Just call me Legend. Yeah. I am Legend.
I have a problem because my name is Akiko and it's not a really English name. So, some polite teacher would come and say, oh, how do I call your name? And I say, oh, my name is Akiko. And I normally say my spelling as well. But, I know it's kind of the name that it doesn't stick in your head because I'm not Emma or something like that. So I just kind of joke that, if you forget, just call me Tomato. It's fine.
I've never thought of Tomato and Akiko. They don't even rhyme.
Okay, so there was a teacher called Alexander Proyer. He's somewhere in America, but he was a very funny guy. And we were good. When he was guesting, we were really good friends. And he eventually remembered my name. But the first few days, he tried to remember my name, but he wasn't sure first few classes. And he thought he called my name, but apparently I didn't react. So, and he was like, okay, Tomato. So my nickname became Tomato at that time. So that's why I'm just saying him. Yeah. difficult, isn't it? Names.
But going back to maestro, I don't mind maestro if it's the first time I'm working with the teacher and they're only there for that lesson. If it's first date nerves at a company or wherever, and they're the guest person and they don't know your name, they can ask you it, but they might not remember it. So for I don't mind maestro then, but if somebody knows my name
and you've been working with them for months and months,
if somebody knows me, it's nice if they use it.
I just feel like, when somebody call me like maestro, like I feel like I'm Karayan or somebody, and I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not Lang Lang. I'm just a lonely ballet pianist in the corner. I'm playing a South Park medley for fun while you're just in glisses and jetés. Has anybody else got any more tips for a newbie teacher?
One more. I think it comes with what David said. That sing the tune and the beat matters, not the time signature.
Use your voice.
Yeah.
We've said that, haven't
You've
we,
said
in
that
the previous
series, but just, don't be shy. It doesn't matter. I can't sing, and I'll try and sing something if I'm confused with what a teacher's marked.
If you just say the counts in the rhythm that you want it,
Yeah.
it usually helps.
But even that, if you don't want to sing, you can, if you're trying to mark a player, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. You can get from that. I mean, that was a very bad way of setting, but you can get from that. I think it's legato. It sets the tempo near as damn it, and that's it. It's a 3/4. So then, as a pianist, you can spend the rest of the exercise going, I'm going to decide what I want to do in this.
On teachers' courses, do they teach you how to set exercises?
They should do.
Because I find, generally speaking, teachers are all right, but I find adage is where new teachers come unstuck. Because they'll count développé in 8 counts, because they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, extend, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we know that's going to be very slow if you put it into, a 3/4 or
Adage
something.
can be one that, going back, adage can often be over choreographed.
Yeah.
When you're a newbie teacher, you get embarrassed because you feel things take longer than they actually do in your head. But to have that patience with yourself and to learn from that and to actually count it in the actual speed and the rhythm that you want something actually helps you and your pianist, because then you get the right information at the right speed.
Yeah. Well, we had a chat at my work with my colleague the other day. So one of the teacher asked 5/4, and she sang, so it wasn't the problem. And then, but it just brought up as a discussion that David, you sometimes do 5/4 in plie, but you sing what's that?
Take 5.
Yeah, take 5. But like Bronze Idol from Ballet, that's also 5/4. And this teacher wanted me to play 5/4, but she said it's a bit like Polonaise, but one less count. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5. That's what the rhythm she wanted. And she told me, and she sang it for me, so I understand. But if the teacher say 5/4, I would probably think that take 5 is as a musician, but it's a very different type
That's
of
the go-to
5/4.
musician's 5, isn't it? Is always take 5.
But when we say 5/4 or Polonaise, we really mean a 5 count phrase or a 6 count phrase.
Yeah.
What happens in between those bar lines could be jazzy like take 5, or could be a bit more march-like in a 5 count phrase.
So that's what we need to know, don't we, before we play?
The easiest thing to do is before the class starts, if you have a chance, is to speak to your pianist, because it's something different. Ask them, and then you can discuss it and find out. So you don't have that impasse when you want it.
And if let your pianist know if you want to do something weird because you've just come off a teacher's course and you want to have a 5/4 in every exercise, so in every class. Check that what you're going to, or even the information that you're going to give to your pianist is enough for the pianist.
I've had that before where someone says, I've got an idea for a triple jig in the centre. But they told me at the start of class. So I've got like the bar to think about it. And of course I could just, do one on the fly. But like you say, speak before class. Just sit, I've got this weird little thing going a bit, curveball. What do you think? And the pianist was like, oh, yeah, I've got that. Or, no, never played that before.
Or instead of like after bars, I'm going to ask you for the bark. at the end of class and go, what is the bar? I know he was a composer, but, you know, he wrote a plethora of work. The Wi-Fi isn't quick enough to download everything that Bach ever did, Mr. J.S. Bach.
This is done on the Chopin. Eh? We've had that before, haven't we? Anyway.
No idea who you're talking about. Anyway, on the next episode, listeners, it's going to be in conversation with Gavin Sutherland, who was the music director of English National Ballet Company for 15 years, 16 years or something like that. And it's, as we referenced in a previous episode, it's possibly the most honest, candid, open in conversation we've ever done. It was the most fun I've ever had editing an episode, I'll be honest with you. It's also the most stuff that's gone on the cutting room floor, sadly. But you never know. But yeah, so I hope you joined us for that, and we look forward to our next roundtable episode in a couple of weeks, where we're going to be discussing our tips for new pianists and what you can do to get out of that hole that you found yourself in your first ever ballet class. So for now, it's going to be goodbye from me.
Sayonara.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.